Hello, this is video 4 in your quantum physics. It's 4 out of 5. You may think this is a lot. I really think these last 2 videos are going to solidify your understanding of how you create your reality. And that is exactly what I'm going to show you today. Is firstly, have a think about just how powerful we are. You might be surprised to know that the energy that we hold inside our bodies and everything that's going on chemically, physically inside of our bodies right now, you have the equivalent energy of 30 atom bombs inside you. What I find really exciting about this is that clearly we have only just scratched the surface about how to direct that energy. And as many of you know, I'm a big fan of superhero movies and comic books that have been made into movies. And I love this because every time I watch one of those, every time I watch Spider-Man or if I watch the Avengers or whatever it might be, it's reminding me that we have so much untapped potential or energy inside us. And my goodness, when we really figure it out, how exciting is it going to be? So, take this into account. Also, consider the fact that everything, every single element or atom of matter in the universe is nothing more than vibrating energy. That's it. It's as simple as that. So all, she says simply, all we've got to do is work out how to manipulate the energy that we already have. So, to really give you the physics background, and this is the last physics background I'm going to give you before I share a few more facts with you in video 5, the experiment that proved beyond doubt scientifically that we create our realities, you create your reality, I create my reality, was an experiment called the double slit experiment. Now, I've tried to show it here. I've stolen a picture that I thought was simple and easy to understand. So just have a look at this and it'll give you some insight in how to understand exactly what happens during the double slit experiment. Okay, so the particle cannon, or in this case, in this image, the electron beam gun, fires electrons at a wall. Now, first thing you want to know is the fact that this is a stimulus-free environment, so there's no potential for interference before the wall, the first wall to be specific. Now, this first wall has 2 rectangular shaped slits in it. And then a second wall is placed behind the first wall. This second wall is complete, there are no slits in it. And the idea is to understand what pattern the electrons form on the second screen. Okay, so that's the overview, that's the general idea. So let's just go on to how does it work. So as I mentioned, this particle cannon fires the electrons, and the second wall behind the first wall is completely intact, and they're looking to understand the impact of the patterns on that wall. Now, let's forget about electrons for a minute. Let's pretend you're throwing apples. Or you've got a machine gun, but let's use apples, I prefer that. I was once really naughty and I threw a load of crab apples at my house wall when I was about 5. I was really frustrated about something and I decided to do it, and actually I had a little tantrum and it left an amazing mark all over that wall, and I then had to spend a whole day with a hose pipe and a really long brush trying to clean it off, as my father was totally unimpressed. Anyway, going back to these apples, if you were to hurl a load of apples through the first wall with the 2 rectangular slits, what pattern would you imagine that the apples would make on the secondary wall? Well, you'd probably imagine that the pattern would be just about a similar shape to the slits in the first wall, and maybe a little bit wider just in case you threw them at an angle. Yeah? So similar shape, maybe a little bit bigger. That's what you'd expect. However, that is not what happens. What happens with these electrons is that actually the patterns on the second wall become wave patterns, and they cover almost the entire wall. So these rapidly fired electrons go through the slit, become waves, and hit all areas of the second wall. You say, okay, well, that's great, Sarah. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that an electron can be a wave and it can be a particle all at the same time. So simultaneously, it can be a wave and it can be a particle. So it can behave as a wave and a particle, or a particle. And this is the wave duality law in physics. Okay, great. So what do? Well, these clever physicists decided that they would fire a photon. And remember, photon is light energy. They fired a photon at each individual electron before it reaches the first wall. So, what happens? Well, have a think about it. Ask yourself what you think happened. Well, guess what? You get what you expect. And you might think, hang on a minute, what do you mean by that? And what I mean by that is the minute the photon hits the electron, actually, what happens is that it creates a pattern that is very similar to the two slits in the first wall on the second wall. Now, what is the photon here? Well, the photon is effectively observation. And this experiment proved that until the electron is actually observed, it doesn't manifest. And actually it becomes a wave. Or maybe it becomes a particle, maybe it's a wave and a particle all at the same time. However, the point is this: you get exactly what you expect. And what it proved in this experiment is that electrons, until they are actually observed or looked at, are just potential. They don't really exist. And what's interesting about this is that electrons, as you probably know if you've watched my Big Bang Theory video or the previous quantum physics videos, are that they are the building blocks for all matter in the universe and on Earth. And they don't have any pre-existing state of being. Oh, it's so exciting. And what this really does prove scientifically, this is not all magical, or even magical and mystical, it proves that your observation and your expectation manifests the electron, or to put it a different way, your observation and expectation manifests the matter. And the thing is, you know this because you do it all the time. I was thinking about my bougainvillea recently, and I gave it a really good, I got out there with my secateurs and I gave it a really good crop, a big old haircut. And actually I left it with no flowers whatsoever, and I took all of the stems way back. I cut a good few feet off them. And I looked at it, and somebody else said to me, "Oh my God, what have you done to the bougainvillea?" I said, well, I've cropped it, I've pruned it so that it has a better opportunity to grow back. And it was absolutely 100% within my expectation that within 3 weeks my bougainvillea would yet again be beautiful and budding, fabulous pink, shocking pink and pale pink flowers. Needless to say, took maybe 3.5, 4 weeks, and I have a beautiful bougainvillea. And I knew that was going to happen, and I expected it. It was perfectly normal, because obviously that follows the laws of nature. That's how it works, we know that. So how is it so challenging for us to map the expectation that we have around things that we know? You know, like if I put these ingredients in a pasta dish, it's going to taste like this. If I trim back or prune my bougainvillea, it's going to take a little bit of time and it's going to look like this. However, I trust that no matter what, it's growing and it's changing and it's developing. So our expectation manifests the material into being. And here's the really, really amazing thing. Actually, it really makes no difference from a universal perspective whether we are trying to manifest a flower or a ton of cash or a dream home. However, consider this. Obviously, it's possible, I guess, in fact, there are many people out there doing it. There are people who effectively can create magical transitions that seem like huge quantum leaps in terms of their manifestation. And yet, what I have learned is that, and bear in mind that I've been studying quantum physics for 20 years, scratching my head, reading a million books, and truly, I only got it last year. I only really got this last year. I don't know why, I don't know what happened, I don't know what was different, and yet now I really understand that everything follows the law of nature, which means we can manifest anything. It's just that, is it realistic to expect my bougainvillea to go from being completely bald to fully fledged flowers in 24 hours? Is it realistic? Well, it's possible. It would just take a massive quantum jump. So, since our feedback systems are so dominated by our experience, isn't it better to follow the laws of nature and know that it's happening, know that it's already in progress? I mean, we're changing every day anyway, we're growing. And focus only on our expectation with no real time of when it's to happen. Just trusting the perfect time. Just trusting. It's an interesting idea, isn't it? And again, it depends who you're talking to. I mean, you know, if you're operating in a fully 3D world, then actually time's really important to you. And people need deadlines, people need the times, people need to be told how to do things, when to do things, what to do, the checklist, the blah, blah, blah. And that's okay. And it's okay that it's there as well. And it's okay that that will continue to be there. No problem. In fact, it's great. If you are talking to people who are looking to leap into 5D or 4D, then it can probably be even more powerful to just allow them to trust and maintain the focus and just think of it as the natural law, the sequential, natural, ever expanding, ever developing, natural law. So, can you see it? If you can see it, you can create it. See your dreams. And that is the end of my super short video forum quantum physics. I hope this has really helped to cement in the idea that you create your reality, and giving yourself tiny little leaps that then give you the feedback of, wow, I'm moving, I can see I'm moving, that then allow you to strengthen that visualization, the expectation, the observation. You're observing the positive feedback all the time. Your expectation is building and building and building and building, and can probably even expand beyond what you imagined. It's pretty cool. See you later. Bye.